And now, to help us learn more about Native Americans and their way of life on the North Fork, here's Tipi Ted and his assistants, Rex and Liam Spielman.
Hi, my name is Tipi Ted, and I'm from the Wilderness Traveling Museum. And for this occasion, it's just the Wilderness Museum. We haven't traveled anywhere because right now we are located at Downs Farm Preserve, also known as Fort Cutchogue. And we are in agreement with the Peconic Land Trust and the town of Southold that has allowed us to set up a museum in the original one-room East Cutchogue schoolhouse. So we're here today in a schoolroom, and we have some fine students with us this evening. This is Liam, who's 9, and Rex, 10 years old. So we're here at an authentic native village site, and it's a very, very powerful place. We know that native people have walked all over what we now call Long Island, but there's a different sense to it when we're at the actual village site where people lived, slept, ate, the children played games. There's a closeness to that. And that closeness is very similar to what native people felt with nature. That native people felt a part of nature, not dominating, not how can we use nature. It was more how can we not even work with nature, but how can we be with nature as an equal, with the moths, the trees, the clouds, the deer. And one of the ways that they felt and tried to be equal was to be the best recyclers and try to use the most of everything, of anything that they were interacting with. And the deer was a very important aspect of native life here on Long Island. One reason was the deer was so abundant here. And they used the deer for many, many, many things. Rex and Liam, what are some things that the deer was used for?
The deers were used for meat and fur in the winter when it was cold. They would put stuff the moccasins with fur, and they would praise the deer after it was killed. They would eat the heart first because it said that they thought it gave them strength.
Well, the bones were used for digging. The shoulder bone was used for a hoe, and maybe the arm bone over here would be used for an awl or a game.
So when the deer skin first comes off the animal, we're going to call it raw hide. Raw meaning uncooked skin. And it dries hard, and it has to be, one, the decision has to be made whether to leave the fur on or not. If we're going to leave the fur on, that's possible, and then we're going to soak it overnight. If we want the fur to come off, we can soak it in water. And this is raw hide with the fur on that we've soaked. And once it's been soaking, the fur just pulls right off. So that's one way of removing the fur. Another way would be called the dry method, and that's where it's tied up and actually the fur is scraped off. Now, when the skin is wet, the rawhide, think of it as a trampoline. You can stretch it, and it gets tied up on a frame, and it dries very hard. This is very similar if you have a dog at home and you have a doggy bone. That's animal skin, that's raw animal skin. And a nice little experiment to do with a new doggy bone is take one end of it, put it in a glass of water, and soak it for a couple of hours. And then you can pull it out and you can actually untie the knot, and it'll be very soft. So you can have one end of the doggy bone soft and the other end is hard. It's a nice little science experiment. Now, when the rawhide is wet, you can stretch it and you can put it into any shape that you want. And if you can hold it into that shape, it'll dry in that shape. If it gets wet, then it's going to come back and going to look like a rawhide rag. So this could be used, you could dry it into the shape of a box, any type of a container, and it could be used for that as long as it did not get wet again. If you want the rawhide to be soft, we have to do something to it. We have to add something to it besides water. Now, what's inside the head of a deer?
The brain.
The brains. Excellent. Okay, so we would take the skull of the deer and we're going to remove the brains from the back. They're going to be pink and soft, and we're going to add the pink brains with a little bit of water, and we're going to soak the rawhide with water overnight. We're going to squeeze it really tight. We're going to roll it up and just keep twisting it. Now, we're going to tie it up again in a frame, and we're going to take, it almost looks like a very small, thin paddle. And we're going to take that paddle and we're going to bounce it on this deerskin trampoline. And we're going to be actually pushing back and forth on the deerskin. And just as our clothes dry the softest because they're in motion in our washing machines, in our drying machines, or on the line, our clothes dry the softest when they're in motion. Same thing with the deerskin. The deerskin with the brains soaked into it now. Think of the deerskin as a sponge. And we want the brains of the deer to permeate into that deerskin, into every cell. And then we're going to keep moving this deerskin. The longer it takes to dry, the longer it's in motion, the softer the deerskin will dry. And instead of rawhide, now we're going to have tanned skin. Okay, this used to be just like that.